Welcome back to Guru Beauty. I am Jodie, and today I'm sharing with you my thoughts and experiences with Hourglass's new range of eyeshadow palettes, the Modernist range. They have released 7 different palettes in this line, and they are just about to hit our shores here in Australia at about $76 a piece. These have been quite controversial because the original palette that was released in the US, this one here, the Infinity Modernist Eyeshadow palette, this really did seem to polarize a lot of beauty bloggers and vloggers. One of my favorite people to check for reviews, whose opinion I trust quite implicitly, is Temptalia. Temptalia has reviewed all of these palettes and has given them a fairly bad rap. I love these palettes. I've been using these now for probably a month. I've been posting various looks on my Instagram. I am wearing one of the palettes today on my eyes, not the Infinity, but I've really been enjoying these palettes. So what I'm going to do today is share with you my thoughts. I'll also weigh in with some of the things that people are complaining about, and then I'll also swatch all 7 palettes for you. So first up, the packaging. The packaging is a shiny, kind of dark brown, metallic-y looking material, and this certainly does show any fingerprints. It starts looking grubby very quickly. And one of the things that most people would agree on is certainly the attractiveness of this palette. You can see that the shadows are sort of pressed into the pan with a kind of ripple type texture, and it does certainly look very visually appealing in the pan. While it is attractive, some people do take exception to the fact that these shadows are packed into the pan sort of all together, if you will, without separation. But I find even with a large shadow brush, this is one that is very large for my lid, I really find no problem picking up the shadow that I want without picking up anything, and that's even the tiniest little darkest shade in the corner there. So I don't find that to be a problem. I don't think it will be a problem as I get down deeper into the eyeshadow palette. I certainly don't mind that, but do beware if you do like your shadows to be separated. This obviously does not provide that for you. I love that these palettes do combine different finishes and textures. I find that, you know, a palette that's all shimmery is going to fall short. A palette that's all matte is certainly going to do the job, but it's nice to have a shimmer or two. One of the things that people really don't like about this palette is that it does kick up quite a bit of powder. Really, you only have to touch gently the shadow and it does kick up excess kind of powder. Couple of problems with that. Number one, it can result in fallout on the face. Really, from my experience, I really haven't had fallout on my face using these eyeshadow palettes. Having said that, I do always tap my brush off after I dip a brush in the palette, but that's for any eyeshadow, not just the Hourglass range. The other thing that people would have issue with these palettes kicking up a lot of powder is that perhaps you're going to go through this product a little bit faster than you would another more densely packed, less powdery eyeshadow palette, and at 76 Australian dollars a pop, you certainly don't want your powder going to waste. It's not one of the cheapest palettes out there, even at Mecca. There are some people also who claim that the colors don't really blend very well, that the effect ends up being sort of, you know, one blurry color, or that they're not buttery or not pigmented. I just don't find that. Maybe my needs are a little bit different. I'm not a professional makeup artist. I'm just after like everyday kind of wearable looks really, and I find that these really do work nicely for blending. I love the fact that you've got a couple of transition colors. You've got a highlight color that works on the brow bone as well as the inner corner, and I don't find that the looks are muddy. I will include my various looks that I've done and posted to Instagram as I show you each palette. So they're probably the most common comments that people are talking about out there when they are reviewing or sharing their thoughts on these palettes. I will now go into the various palettes. First up, this was the original. This is the Infinity palette. You can see that we have 5 lovely neutral shades there. Many people love their neutral eyeshadow palettes. We've got a lovely matte cream, a lovely warm medium brown, again that shimmery sort of mauvey shade. I love that mauvey shade all over the lid, it's gorgeous. You've got a more cooler toned brown, beautiful all over the lid as well, and then this nice darker brown. I find that many of the other palettes this does not apply, but with this palette you can do a complete look because you've got a matte highlight for the brow bone and the inner corner, because you've got a nice dark shade. You can certainly define the outer V. You can certainly line with this or blend out, pencil or gel liner as well with it. This definitely is a complete standalone palette, and I really do like the Infinity palette. Next up we have Atmosphere. Atmosphere is also a neutral palette, and this one just has more of a pinky shade, I guess you would say, than the mauvey sparkly shade that you get in the Infinity palette. Atmosphere, also like Infinity, is another one that stands alone with a really nice wearable matte highlight, brow bone, inner corner, all over the lid, a lovely pink that can go all over the lid, or you can use that or this medium brown as a transition shade. This also would be lovely for a really neutral crease color as well, just for a light daytime look. And then you've got a couple of darker shade options. You've got a nice matte dark brown, and then also a more gray toned brown that has a tiny bit of shimmer to it. Besides this darkest shade, every other shade in this Atmosphere palette is very matte. Definitely that cream color, you're definitely getting color off of that shadow. You are certainly getting some color coming off of that pink, which is lovely. These two shades certainly are different enough from each other to be useful. This lovely, beautiful matte cocoa brown medium transition shade, gorgeous, gorgeous for crease work, blending out, transitioning, a really lovely versatile shade. And then of course you've got these two darker shades down here. Really like the Atmosphere palette. Again, I think many of you neutral lovers who want sort of daytime looks, but then also the ability to smoke something out for nighttime, I think you'll really like the Atmosphere palette. Next up, this is one for you pinky mauvey type lovers. This is Monochrome. Monochrome, again, you could describe as a fairly neutral palette. The cream, the pink, and this medium mauvey shade are all pretty matte. We've got a slight shimmer here in this pinky rosy shade, and also a slight shimmer here in the darker brown shade. I think you could really do a beautiful look with either of these pinks or this purple all over the lid, certainly defining or lining with this darker shade with a tiny bit of shimmer, and a very nice versatile highlight as well. The first three palettes that I've showed you, all of these highlight shades really are practical and very usable on the brow and the inner corner. Definitely another standalone palette here with Monochrome. If you're a little less of a pink and more of a purple lover, you are going to love this palette. This one is called Exposure, and it's got a really, really nice range of purples to it. The setup is a little bit different in this palette than the others, in that the darkest shade is not in the corner, but we still do have certainly 5 shades and slightly more shimmer options in this one than the other neutral palettes that I have shown you. I really do have to say that this highlight shade is gorgeous all over the lid or on the inner corner. Quite a bit of shimmer pearlescence to it, so I would hesitate to pop that one on my brow bone though. This is a gorgeous grape shade. It's got a beautiful sort of pearlescent finish to it. Not so much of a shimmer, but definitely a pearl finish to that. A gorgeous sort of medium, how would I describe that, like a rosy gold shade. Absolutely gorgeous, again all over the lid, beautiful. And this darker brown, certainly this darker brown here does have more of a pearl rather than a shimmer finish to it. And then you've got this gorgeous lighter purple shade as well. It's the Exposure palette that I'm wearing on my lids today. If you like purple, definitely go and check this one out. I would say the one thing that it is lacking is a matte transition color, so I certainly didn't use one today, but other looks that I have worn with this palette have called for another palette or another eyeshadow just to provide that matte transition color, because you don't have it in this palette at all. But beautiful, beautiful shades. Absolutely love it. The quality of these eyeshadows I think are absolutely beautiful. Others disagree, so I definitely encourage you to go and check them out in the stores before you make the investment. Another neutral lovers palette. This one is Obscura, and I love Obscura because of the combination of shades. I love the goldy shade, I love the pearly shade. I do love the fact that it's got a darker shade and then a darker goldy shade as well. If you don't mind a slight pearlescence to your highlighter, this one would go okay on the brow bone. It's not too intense, certainly a beautiful shade for the inner corner or all over the lid. These two darker shades are very, very similar. This is more of a matte brown. This is slightly warmer with a very, very slight pearlescent finish to it. And then these two sort of goldy shades, they are definitely different. They do come off as different. You certainly could use the two of those together, you know, on different parts of your eye to create dimension. Absolutely gorgeous shades, but one of the things that I'm disappointed about in this palette, I would say, is that I reckon they should have replaced one of those browns with a matte transition brown. And you can certainly see what I mean when I show you the swatch. So the pearlescent highlight, these are the two darker shades. You can see that they are different, but in my mind, I'm not sure if they're different enough. If you're spending $76 on a palette for 5 shades, you know, are they different enough? The beautiful light gold and then darker gold shades are gorgeous. I still really like this palette. I really like it. I just think that it could have been improved upon by having just a little bit more differentiation between those two darker shades, but I still really like Obscura. 2 more palettes to go and we're moving into a slightly more colorful range here. This one is for the green lovers and this one is called Colorfield. We definitely are much more in the shimmer category here with Colorfield. I love this palette. I love wearing green shadows on my brown eyes and I do really like the combination of shades here. Given that this is pretty much all shimmers, I do find that this is not a standalone palette, so you do need other shadows to complement looks with this palette. This highlight shade, it does have a very slightly pearl finish, but it's probably the least sort of pigmented out of all the highlight shades in all of the Modernist eyeshadow palettes, which may be really nice for those of you who want a really subtle lid color or brow color. That can come in very handy, those more subtle highlight shades. You will hardly see it though. Next one is very sort of similar to MAC's kind of patina type shade. It's like an antique-y champagne gold, really pretty color. I've used that one all over my lid as well as in my inner corner. I really enjoyed that shade. Then we've got a shimmery sort of pinky brown, I guess you would describe that as. Very, very pretty again all over the lid, also on the under eye. And then these 2 green shades. I love a good olive eyeshadow and this one in Colorfield certainly is an olive. You've certainly got a shimmer to that, but beautiful all over the lid. And then the darkest shade is almost like a black or a greeny black shadow with gold flecks in it. This would be gorgeous all over a black base. I really like Colorfield, but just beware that you do certainly need some other shadows to complement. Lastly, we have Graphite. Graphite is another one that introduces a little bit more color than the neutral palettes. I actually really quite like Graphite. What I like about it is you've got a lovely gold as well as a silver shade, so you can really create something warmer or cooler with this palette. You've got a gorgeous shimmery navy type eyeshadow shade, more of a matte dark brown, and then again a barely not there highlighter shade. This highlighter shade, similar to the one in Colorfield, really not much payoff. I'd say they are the least pigmented eyeshadows across all of the palettes, are the highlight shades in the greeny Colorfield palette and then in this Graphite palette. Really like the Graphite palette. I love navy eyeshadows and I love the fact that you've got the option of silver or gold in there. You can see that that highlight shade really is very barely there. You can certainly see the sparkle there. Hopefully it's coming up on the camera with the gold shade. I've used that on the inner corner and it's been really quite pretty. A matte dark chocolate brown, that gorgeous shimmery navy, again that would be beautiful on its own as a liner or blending out the lower lash line or over a color base. Absolutely beautiful all over the lid as well if you want more of like a shimmery navy smoky eye. And then you've got that silvery shade that certainly does come up and show on the lid. That is all 7 of the Hourglass Modernist eyeshadow palettes. I hope that this helped some of you who are trying to decide, is this something that I want to go and look at? Is this something that I want to buy online? Is this something that I want to save money for or not? The reviews have been mixed. I think what it comes down to is that Hourglass is a luxury brand of makeup and it's going to cost a pretty penny, $76. There certainly are plenty of eyeshadow palettes that not only give you more shades, more variation, but for a lower price and still a very good quality eyeshadow. But you know, I really enjoyed these palettes. I will continue to enjoy them. I will keep these palettes and I will continue to create looks with them and reach for them, definitely. So do I recommend them? Yes, for those of you who like spending a bit of money on luxury high-end makeup. Is there a better value eyeshadow palette out there? Yes, there of great quality, better eyeshadow palettes out there that give you more shades in the palette. But do go and check them out in store though if you are a little bit teetering on the edge. Go and have a play with them, see what you think. Mecca offers wonderful services too. They can apply it on your eye and show you how to use some of the different shade options as well. So don't forget to use their services there. That's about it from me, but I know that many of you are going to be asking me in the comments which one is my favorite. So I will answer that question, but unfortunately I cannot narrow it down to one. I'll give you my top 3 favorites. First up, Infinity, the original. I think that this is a lovely range of shades. You've got enough mattes to just have a completely matte look, but then with that beautiful shimmer color in the middle, it really does add something. I really do like Infinity. Also, I really do love the Exposure palette. This is the one I'm wearing today. I love the range of purples. Purple complements green eyes, brown eyes. Purple also looks lovely with brown eyes as well. I think this is just a lovely range of shades. I really like Exposure. And then finally, I really love the olive shade, and then also this kind of patina shade in Colourfield. So I would say that Colourfield rounds out my top 3 picks from the Modernist eyeshadow palette range from Hourglass. That is about it from me. Please do comment down below. I would love to hear from you. What are your thoughts? What do you think? What's your favorite? Will you go near these eyeshadow palettes or not? All of that I welcome down below. I love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching. Have yourself a fantastic day, and don't forget, you are beautiful, and don't just worry about looking at it. Make sure you be it. I'll see you again really soon. Bye.